Serious thinking people often have an existential problem in life. If you're a serious person, you take life seriously, you want to do what's right, you want to do what the Almighty wants of you, you may have a problem. And that problem is how to find the proper path in life, how to find the path, the mission, the role, the task, the job that the Almighty created you for. Our sources are unequivocal. Every individual is a completely unique phenomenon. Every person is a one of a kind, once in history phenomenon. I like to think of humanity or every human as an endangered species. You're your own of your kind. And you have your own soul that's completely unique to you. And as a result, our sages tell us, everyone needs to chart their own path in life. We're all different. And the reason why we're different is because we all have a different job to do. We have a different mission, a different task, a different responsibility in our lifetime. And one way I like to present this idea is by saying that our responsibilities in life are twofold. We have the generic responsibilities of humanity. We could call this the 613 mitzvos. It's universal. It's across the board. Everyone's the same. But there's also a second element of our spiritual responsibility, and that's a specific role that we and we alone can play. There's a specific job, a requirement that we and we alone can fill. And a serious thinking person may have to wrestle with the vexing question, how to find your mission in life, how to find that job, that task, that responsibility for which you were created. This is a serious person's problem. How do you find the mission for which you were created? Now, Shadis tell us that in antiquity, this was the job of the prophet. We have a list of 48 named male prophets and 7 named female prophets over the course of our history. And of course, we have many books authored by the prophets. But there were actually more than double the amount of those who left Egypt, meaning more than double 600,000 prophets in our history, meaning that there were more than 1.2 million prophets in our history. And for the absolute overwhelming majority of them, we don't know what they did. We don't know their names. We don't know what books they wrote. We don't know anything about them. But Hasidus tells us that the role of the prophet, the primary role of a prophet, was to reveal to every individual what their shoresh hanashama is, what the root of their soul is, what specific element, responsibility, task, job, mission in life that their particular soul needs to fulfill. So yes, we have the 48 named prophets and the 7 named prophetesses, and we have lots of writings from these prophets. But from the million plus prophets that have existed, we don't really have anything that is enduring because their prophecies were given to individuals, not to the masses. So in antiquity, if you wanted to know the answer to this problem, to this vexing problem, you would go to the prophet. The prophet had the ability, the clairvoyant ability to peer into your soul, to understand exactly where in the soul of Adam your soul derived from, and to understand what mission you have in life, and would lay out for you a completely bespoke guidebook, roadmap for life, and you knew what you needed to accomplish. And that was wonderful. That was great. For about 1,000 years after Sinai, we had prophecy, and there were thousands of prophets that existed simultaneously, more than 1 million over the course of our history. and everyone knew exactly what they need to do. With the building of the second temple, prophecy went extinct. And ever since then, we have this problem. We know, and again, the sources are very clear about this. Every individual, in addition to their generic responsibilities, they also have a specific mission, a specific responsibility that they and they alone can and must fulfill. But how to find that? We don't have prophets, and we are like blind people groping in the dark. Now, we may say, well, we can't find the answer. We don't know what we're here to do. We'll just subsist, which is doing the general requirements, the 613, even if we ignore what we particularly need to do. Well, it's not bad. The sources tell us that it's absolutely imperative for a person to find their own path. And the consequences of not finding your own path, of living a generic life, are quite severe. And in fact, the sources tell us that the primary judgment that a person has before the heavenly tribunal is about whether or not they fulfilled their specific mission. So we don't have the option to say, well, it's not really our problem. Give me a prophet, and then I'll know what to do. We have to find the answer. And again, I said this is a problem that serious thinking people have. Not everyone has this problem. Not everyone thinks about this. But if you are aware of the fact that you're put here for a mission, and if you don't fulfill your mission, you're in big trouble. And your mission is not, or your individual mission is not told to you in a way that you could clearly discover. Yes, the generalized Torah is very well laid out, but the specific mission, it's just not given to you. You're not informed, and you have to figure it out, and you have to fulfill it. That's a problem that serious thinking people have. And some may hope and wonder and lament the fact that there isn't some sort of guidebook, some instruction manual that's tailored to me. If only there was a book, a step-by-step guide that directs every person on the correct path for them. Now, can there even be such a book? By definition, every individual is unique. There are no two souls that are the same. Accordingly, there are no two missions that are the same. So maybe there cannot be a book. But if only there was a book that could solve our problem. I have good news. There is a book. In chapter 5, verse 1 of Genesis, Ze Sefer Toldos Ha'adam. This is the book of the Chronicles of Adam. A quite mysterious verse. The verse continues, B'yom b'ro Elokim Adam, on the day that God created Adam, man or Adam, B'dmus Elokim, in the image of God, Asa Oso, he made him. What does this mean? This is the Sefer Toldos Adam. This is the Sefer, the book of the Chronicles of Adam, of man, of Adam. So the Talmud tells us that there's actually a book. There's a book called the Chronicles of Adam. And this book contains within it all the chronicles of Adam and his descendants. And this book was shown to Adam, the eponymous figure in this book. Talmud tells us in the book of Sanhedrin, page 38b, and the book of Avodah Zarah, page 5a, God showed this book to Adam. And in it listed every generation and its influencers, every generation and its wise people. It lists all the people in the book, all the future chronicles of Adam. And the Talmud says that Adam was perusing this book, And he arrived at the generation of Rabbi Akiva. And all it says, a cryptic comment, Samach b'toraso v'nisatzev b'misaso. Rabbi Akiva, of course, lived a wonderful, iconic, and ultimately tragic life because he was killed by the Romans in brutal, barbaric fashion. And the Talmud tells us that Adam, when he saw the fate of Rabbi Akiva, he was glad, he was delighted with his Torah, but he was saddened with his death. So the verse tells us, Genesis chapter 5, verse 1, that there's a book, the book called the Chronicles of Adam. And God showed this book to Adam, and this book delineates all the future generations, the movers and shakers of his descendants. And the Talmud tells us that he made one observation about Rabbi Akiva. He was happy with his Torah, but he was saddened with his death. Now, in other sources, this book appears as well. The Midrash and the Zohar talk about another future personality that Adam saw. As he's rifling through the generations, he sees David. And in the entry of David, it says he is destined to live for 3 hours, and then he will perish. And the Midrash recounts that Adam said to God, is there any hope for this individual, for this David? He's going to live for only 3 hours, and then he's going to perish. The world will only have David for 3 hours, that's it. And God says, listen, this is my plan. You can't really intervene with my plan. This is what I want. And Adam persists. Adam asks God, well, how long am I destined to live? And God responds, 1,000 years. And Adam asks, well, can I gift some of my years to David? Is that an option? Is there a mechanism by which I can give over some of my to David? And God says, yes. So Adam says, I hereby bequeath 70 years of my life to David. And the Midrash concludes, they signed the document, a contract, signed by Adam, by God, and by an angel, that Adam has bestowed upon David 70 years of his life. And thus David lived to the age of 70. Adam died at the age of 930. So we're told there's this book, and Adam saw the book, and he's going through all the generations, and he sees Rabbi Akiva, and he sees David. And regarding David, Adam takes action, and he gives off some of his life to David. Now, we spoke about this in this past week's Parsha podcast, the whole concept of gifting life, and absolutely fascinating idea. But let's talk more about this book. In many sources, this book appears. The Midrash offers a more detailed version of what's included in this book. Dar v'darshav, generation, and its influencers. Dar, generation, uparnasav, and its benefactors. Every generation and its leaders, every generation and its prophets, every generation and its mighty ones, strong ones, every generation and its criminals, every generation and its pious ones. And the Midrash adds that God showed Adam, in this generation, there's going to be this king, in this generation, there'll be this wise person, and so on. The Midrash is giving us a little bit more detail. It's not just, some categories of people. There's a lot of different categories of people in every generation, and every generation was shown to Adam and all the important people in that generation. In yet another version of the Midrash, it says, in this version, it's talking about how God showed this book to Moshe. There are only 2 people that we know that God showed this book to. In this version, the Midrash says that God showed the book to Moshe, Dar v'shoftav, generation, and its judges, Dar umalachav, every generation and its teams, every generation and its wise ones, every generation and its leaders, every generation and its enforcers, its strong people, its benefactors, its bandits, its thieves, its prophets. There's a book. The book is called the Chronicles of Adam, and it's a book that talks about the future, all the descendants of Adam and the roles that they are destined to play. Now, why is this pertinent to our discussion? We're trying to figure out about, is there a book that tells us what we're supposed to do in life? And I surprised you by saying, well, there is a book. This is the book. This book has been used on record. It's documented for our purpose. Our objective is to find a direction in life, to find a path in life, an individualized path for us. This book has been used, as we shall see, to directing a person towards the correct path for them. The book of Exodus, chapter 31. This is talking about the tabernacle. After it lists all the materials for the tabernacle and all the building and all the vessels and all the vestments. In chapter 31 of Exodus, God tells Moshe who is in charge. This is chapter 31, verse 2. God tells Moshe, Re'eh, see, behold, I have called by name, I have appointed by name, Bezalel, ben Uri, ben Hur, lemate Yehuda. I have appointed, I've designated by name, Bezalel, son of Uri, son of Hur, to the tribe of Judah. He's the right person to build the tabernacle. Now, the commentaries and the Midrash, they focus on the use of the word re'eh, see, behold. God's telling Moshe, okay, Bezalel, this person, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, to the tribe of Judah, he's the person who's going to build the tabernacle and all its vessels and vestments. But that's not what God says. God says, Re'eh, see, behold, I have designated by name Bezalel ben Uri ben Hur to the tribe of Judah. So the Medrash explains that God showed Moshe a book. Which book? The book of Adam, the book of the Chronicles of Adam, the book that we're talking about. And God said to Moshe, every person since the time of Adam has been designated for a certain role, a certain task, a certain mission. And look, behold in the book, it says, by the entry of building the tabernacle, by the entry of Bezalel is the person to build the tabernacle. See, behold, look in the book. Bezalel's the right guy for the job. Now the Ramban, in his commentary to chapter 31 of Exodus, he offers this interpretation. The full text of the Midrash that the Ramban is citing, it gives a little bit more of the backstory. It says that when Moshe went up to heaven, God showed him all the different parts of the tabernacle, all the vessels of the tabernacle. And Moshe thought that, well, he will be the right guy for the job. He was the one to build it. And God says, no, you're a team. Your team gives orders. Others do it. You have no right to build a tabernacle. You instruct others and they build it. And Moshe says, okay, well, who should build it? And God says, I'm going to show you. I'm not going to tell him, I'm going to show you. What did God do? He brought out the book of Adam. Hevilo Sifro Shel Adam Rishon. He brought before Moshe the book of Adam. Veheralo, and showed him. Kol Hadoros, all the generations that are destined to stand from Bereshis, from Genesis, until Tchias HaMeis, until the resurrection. Dor Malachav, every generation and its teens, every generation and its leaders, every generation and its prophets. Amar lo, he said to them, Kol Echad ve'echad, Hiskantiv Ma'us Hashem, every individual, I already prepared from that time. And Bezalel, I prepared for that time as well. I prepared him, I created him, I made him for the mission of building the tabernacle. That's what the verse says. Re'eh, see, look at the book. I have ordained, I have called, I've designated by name Betzalel ben Uri ben Hur to the tribe of Judah. Betzalel had a very important life mission. The reason why he was created was to build a tabernacle and all its vessels. And that was described in Adam's book. There was an inscription, an entry. Betzalel, why is he being created? Thousands of years before Betzalel existed, Adam was shown this book. This is the Chronicles of Adam. And when Moshe wants to know who's the right person for the job, God says, okay, I'll show you. Come here, look at the book. Now, if you were to ask Betzalel the question, how did you find out what you need to do in life? He would say, well, Moshe told me, but really Moshe was shown by the book. There's this book that I read. In the book, it says that's my job. So we see that this book can guide a person in this most important quest of finding their own path in life. Similarly, this book can also be used to help a person avoid taking the wrong path. There could be a lot of different paths, maybe an infinite amount of paths. And one of them is your path. The other ones are false leads, are dead ends. The Talmud tells us, again, the most authoritative of our sources, the Talmud tells us that this book was used to help one of the great sages avoid taking the wrong path. In the book of Bava Metzia, on page 85b, on the bottom, going into 86a, the Talmud talks about Shmuel. Now, if you've never had the privilege of studying Talmud extensively, that name might not ring the bell. Shmuel is one of the greatest of the authors of the Talmud. His name appears basically on every page of the Talmud. Not quite every page, but it appears all over the Talmud. He was effectively one of the founding members of the Babylonian diaspora after the temple was destroyed. He founded the great institutions in Babylon. And he's called, universally, he's called Shmuel. And he's not called a Rabbi Shmuel, a little bit of an honorific. The Talmud tells us he was a physician. He was the physician of Rabbi Judah the Prince. Rabbi Judah the Prince is the end of the Mishnaic era, the Mishnah. He's the one who's the architect of the Mishnah. Shmuel was a contemporary of Rabbi Judah the Prince, but he's more associated with the Talmud, with the period that comes afterwards. And Talmud gives us a story that Rabbi Judah the Prince was ill, and Shmuel, his physician, healed him with great skill. And then the Talmud talks about why Shmuel is not Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Judah the Prince is Rabbi Judah the Prince. In fact, oftentimes, Rabbi Judah the Prince is simply called Rabbi. He's the most rabbi of all rabbis that we've had. And one of the powers vested in rabbis is the ability to ordain other rabbis. That's called smicha, rabbinic ordination. Rabbi Judah the Prince wanted to ordain his colleague, his disciple really, but his physician as well, basically the next generation's greatest sage. He wanted to make him into a rabbi. He wanted to ordain him. And whenever they tried to do it, it just didn't work out. It just didn't work out. He wasn't able to do it. And Rabbi Judah the Prince was really insistent. He wanted to try to, for whatever reason, it just never worked out. So Shmuel tells him, don't worry about it. Don't fret over your inability to ordain me. Don't be upset. I saw the book of Adam, Shmuel tells Rabbi Judah the Prince. And I saw the entry on my name. And it says explicitly, Shmuel will be called a chacham, a wise person, but he will not be a rabbi. He will not receive formal rabbinic ordination. Don't worry about it. It's not going to work out. I'm not going to be ordained. And thus forever, Shmuel is called Shmuel, not Rabbi Shmuel. Why? Because the entry ahead of time, all the way since the times of Adam, his entry, it says, he'll be a sage, he'll be a chacham, a wise person. He will not be a rabbi. So we have a book, the book of the Chronicles of Adam. And it has all the answers to our dilemma. You want to know what you need to do in life? The book says it. While some of the sources talk about how every generation and its leaders and its important people, there are many sources that broaden it and expand it to include really every person. For example, the Medrash that talks about Betzalel being selected, it stresses every person was designated ahead of time since the times of Adam for the particular role that they need to fill. I would be very comfortable saying that we also have an entry in that book. And if we could find out what it says in under our entry in this book, we'll know exactly what mission we need to do, what responsibilities we need to do, what dead ends to avoid. How do you find out what your mission in life, what your path in life is? Well, if you have prophets, that's great. If there's no prophets, there's a workaround. Just find yourself a copy of this book, the book of the Chronicles of Adam. Now, I looked on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. Every time I go to an old bookstore, you can't find a copy of this anywhere. There is no extant copies that I'm aware of. In fact, as I mentioned earlier, there's only 2 people that I know of on record that were shown the book. And again, I was precise with my words. Shmuel says that he saw the book, but there's only 2 sources that say God showed the book to Adam and to Moshe. We're establishing over here the answers are all there in this book, but there's no way to read our entry, right? Is there any way to get a glimpse into this book? To peek inside the book to find out what our entry says? This is a very hard book to attain. Even Moshe and Adam, they were only shown it by God. How did Shmuel get access to this book? He's a sage that, think of him as the 3rd century of the Common Era. So he's 15, 16 years after Moshe. As far as I'm aware, he's the only person besides for Moshe and Adam who are documented to have seen this book. That's a big mystery. How did he see the book? So I looked at the commentators. The commentators asked the question, well, how did he see the book? One of the commentators, the Ben Yehoyada, he says, nearly, it appears to me, he saw this in a dream. He wasn't awake when he saw this. From heaven, they gave him a little glimpse into his entry into the book. To tell him, don't work too hard. Don't bother too hard trying to get smicha. It's not going to work out. And don't fret over it. Don't fret over the fact that you cannot. It just never seems to work out. Don't be upset about it. Don't be sad about it. Don't fret over it. It's not destined to happen. I want to suggest that there is a way to read your entry in the book. There's a way to see inside this hallowed book, the Chronicles of Adam. I want to suggest there's a way to peek inside this most important and mysterious book. There's a way to get a glimpse inside the Chronicles of Adam and to find out what it says about you. Now, of course, you're thinking, oh, this is a classic Wolbe exaggeration. He's overselling it again. Well, listen to what I have to say. And if you don't find it persuasive, send me an email, rabbiwolbe@gmail.com. Bezalel, he was selected to build the Mishkan, to build the tabernacle. How did Moshe know that he was the right man for the job? Well, God told Moshe, look, I've selected Bezalel. And the Midrash tells us more specifically. God told Moshe, look, examine, behold, in the book of Adam. It lists every generation, its leaders and its important people, and its movers and shakers. And under the entry of Bezalel, it's clearly labeled, he is the builder of the tabernacle and its vessels. He's been designated for this task ever since the time of Adam. He's preordained, he's foreordained for this role. Exodus chapter 31, verse 2, God tells Moshe, Re'eh, see, behold, Karas B'Shem, I have selected, I've designated by name, Tzala, ben Uri, ben Hur, to the tribe of Judah. He is the right person for this mission. We have another verse. Moshe, in chapter 31, is told by God that Bezalel is the right man for the job. There's another verse where Moshe tells the people that Bezalel is the right person for the job. That's in chapter 35 of Exodus. So chapter 31 of Exodus, God tells Moshe Bezalel is the right person for the job. A few chapters later, in chapter 35, Moshe tells the people, tells the nation, Bezalel is the right person for the job. And we have almost identical verses. In chapter 31, verse 2, the verse says, Re'eh, see, Karasi b'shem, this is God speaking, I have called, I have designated by name, Bezalel ben Uri l'chur l'matei Yehuda, Bezalel, son of Ur, son of Hur, the tribe of Judah. When Moshe tells the Jewish people, Vayomer Moshe b'nei Israel, this is chapter 35, verse 30, Re'u, see, Kara Hashem, God called b'shem, God designated by name, Bezalel ben Uri ben Hur l'matei Yehuda. This perfect symmetry between what God told Moshe and what Moshe told the nation. God told Moshe, Re'eh, see, Karasi b'shem, I have designated by name, Bezalel, etc., the tribe of Judah. And Moshe tells the nation, Re'u, see, God has designated by name, Bezalel ben Uri, the tribe of Judah. But here's the problem. The Midrash tells us that when God told Moshe that Bezalel is the right guy for the job, he says, look, see, behold, it's in the book. The only two people that God showed this book to is Adam and Moshe. There's one other person that we know of that saw the book. That's Shmuel, the sage that lived many years later. But Moshe did not show this book to the nation. He didn't have the book. He was shown the book, not given it. Yet we have these identical verses. God tells Moshe, see, look at the book. Bezalel, he's the right guy for the job. It says it here in the book of Adam. Moshe says the exact same thing to the nation. Re'u, see, God has designated by name Bezalel ben Uri ben Hur, the tribe of Judah. But it's obvious to me that he didn't show them the book. So how do we understand this? If you were telling me that when Moshe was told by God that Bezalel is the right person for the job, and the verse says, Re'eh, see, and he showed him something, how do we understand when there's the exact same verse? Moshe tells the nation, Re'u, see, what did he show them? How could he have shown them the book? The book is not accessible. I will tell you how he showed them the book. In chapter 35, verse 30, Moshe is telling the nation, Bezalel was selected by God for the task of building the tabernacle. And Moshe showed them the book in a indirect way, because the verses continue. Moshe tells the nation, Ru'u, see, God has designated by name Betzal, ben Uri, ben Hur, the tribe of Judah. And then Moshe continues. And God has filled him with the Spirit of God, with chachma, with wisdom, with tvuna, with insight, with das, with knowledge, ubechol malacha, and with all craft. V'lachsho machshavos, and to think deep ideas, to make designs in gold and silver and copper, and to cut stones for the settings of the tabernacle and its vessels, and to carve wood, and to work in every kind of designer's craft, and to give direction. And him, together with Ahaliah, the son of Achisam, the tribe of Dan, they've been endowed with every skill to do the work of the carver and the designer and the embroiderer in all types of wool, the blue, the purple, the crimson wool, and the linen and the weaving, all the work these people were endowed with. Moshe spends 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 verses showing the nation that Betzalel has all the skills needed to do this job. Moshe did, in fact, show them the book in a circuitous way. He lays out all of Betzalel's qualifications. If you know that Betzalel is endowed with all the skills needed to build a tabernacle, you can infer from that he has been designated for this job since the time of Adam. Where did Betzalel get all these skills from? Where did he get all these abilities from? This very specific set of abilities. Well, of course, all creations get everything that they have from God. Why does God give people certain skills? Others have different skills. That's to achieve your mission, your task, your job, your role. Moshe also showed the nation the entry in the book of Adam. He just did it in a different way, from a different angle. Look, I can show you what it says in the book. Betzalel has the exact skill set needed to build the tabernacle. The only reason why he would have that particular constellation of skills given to him by God, it's only for the purposes of building the tabernacle. There's a very deep insight that Moshe is seeming to tell us. He tells the nation, look, Betzalel is the right guy for the job. I cannot show you this book. It's really not accessible to you. There's only 2 people that God showed this book to. He didn't give the book to anyone. Shmuel saw it. We don't know how, or maybe we do. But I can still show you what it says in the book. Look, it's obvious it's in the book. I cannot show you what it says there directly, but I can show you indirectly. You can reverse engineer Betzalel's entry in Adam's Chronicle by examining the particular skill sets that the Almighty endowed him with. Who gave Betzalel all these abilities? Moshe tells us God endowed him with all these very specific talents, abilities, skills, and gifts. The gifts that we have, the skills we have, are given to us for a purpose. What's the purpose? To fulfill whatever mission the Almighty prepared for us, for our soul, whatever mission it says under our name in Adam's Chronicle. The skills and the mission will be a perfect match. Perhaps we can even suggest another answer as to how Shmuel saw his entry. He was not destined to be an ordained rabbi. And neither because he saw his entry in the book of Adam. It says in it he'll be a wise person, but he won't be a rabbi. Maybe this was some sort of vision that he saw in a dream. Or maybe he was able to intuit what it says about him in Adam's book by examining the particular constellation of abilities and skills and circumstances that he has in his life. And he could interpret from that it's just not the right collection, repertoire of abilities and skills that is designated for the formal rabbinate. Maybe that's how he saw his entry. But this is the answer for our question. If you're a serious thinking person, the most important question you have to grapple with is, what did the Almighty create me to do? And if you look at the sources, you understand that there's a generic mission. There's some universal rules, which we call that the 613. And then there's a specific mission that is completely unique to each individual. How do you find out that? We have a way. There's a book that has all the answers, but I cannot access the book. Well, yes, you can. If you fundamentally understand all your skills and your shortcomings, you can interpret from that. And you can see what it says in your entry. My grandfather, a blessed memory, used to say, woe to someone who does not know their faults, their flaws, their shortcomings. If you don't know that, you don't really know what you need to improve upon, what you need to work on, what you need to refine. But oy vavoy, double woe to those who don't know their skills and talents and abilities, because you have no idea what you must use for your task. There's a book that has all the answers. There's a book with an entry with our name in it. That's very valuable information. And it's very unlikely that we'll ever see the book. It's very likely we're about to have the privilege of seeing what it says by us under our name. As far as I know, there are only three people that saw it, that were shown it, and one sage who saw it. But we can still catch a little glimpse, a little peek. You want to know what you need to do? You want to know what mission specific to you and to your soul you need to accomplish? The answer lies within. Find out what the Almighty gave you, what skills, what tools He gave you. Through that, you can reverse engineer your mission. May we all be so fortunate as to find more clarity in our life and blaze for ourselves an individualized path and chart an individualized roadmap for life and live as individuals, not just as undifferentiated generic things, people. The great sage, the Talmud tells us, would celebrate on the festival of Shavuos. And he would celebrate the fact that through the Torah, he merited to be unique and to be differentiated and to not be ordinary. The mark of a well-developed person is their uniqueness. If someone is just generic, well, did they really need to exist? You could ask the question. Maybe it's a bit harsh. But if you are not doing anything unique, well, then what role are you playing? So yes, any great spiritual edifice must be built on a very firm foundation. We have to start with the things that we know for sure we need to do. But once we mature and we understand, become a little bit more sophisticated in our understanding and our development, we reach that point where we have to really understand what is incumbent upon us as individuals. How do we make ourselves unique, an individual, a completely unique person who has their own path? And one of the ways to do that is to find out what it says about us in the book of Adam. And yes, you can't find the book. It's inaccessible. But there's a way to catch a glimpse. And you know what? There may be even more than one way to catch a glimpse. We'll talk about that some other time, maybe. But there's definitely a way. Moshe tells the nation, look at the book. It says in the book. How do you know it says in the book? Show me the book. No, I'll show it to you. Look at his skills. Look at his abilities. He has the exact skill set to build a mission. It must be that that's what the Almighty created him for. May we be fortunate to find what the Almighty created us for and to live great lives that are differentiated, that are unique, that are bespoke. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for your attention. I look forward to your questions and comments and feedback. Send me an email, rabbiwolbe@gmail.com.